Hey you guys, I thought I'd make a quick little video because someone asked me an interesting question and I wanted to show you how to do it. Let's say you have a Filemaker table where you have products or items like for instance a swan, which is a bird, and you want to create a code for this like a B0001. The B is of course for bird, which is the category we're in, and the 001 is like the first item in that category. Now, how could you set it up so that this number gets generated automatically, or this code, and so that it doesn't kind of go wrong or creates the wrong number or creates the same number twice? Now, how could you set this up in Filemaker? Now, there are a few things going on here. First of all is the letter, which is the B, which is the first letter for the category. And then of course the second part is a number that adds up, and that kind of gives you the count of the amount of birds there are in total. Of course the highest number will be the total amount of birds or items in that category. Now so this is a number that adds up, but only adds up within the specific category, and this is a kind of an abbreviation of the category. Now if you're making a database, the first thing to do is to kind of think about how it could go wrong and to prevent things from going wrong. Now, we could have multiple categories that start with the same letter. So to start, I would like to have a little bit more control other than just saying that this is going to be the first letter of my category. I would like to manually be able to say which letter this is going to be. So in order to do that, let's go to File, Manage Database, and let's see what we are working with. So currently what I've got is one product table. And this one has a couple of fields here. It's got an ID, which is a number of fields that it's set to auto enter a serial number, and it's got a few text fields like the product, category, and the code. Now, what I'm going to do is to have more control over the categories. I'm going to create a category table. Very simple stuff. Let's add a couple of fields. Let's have an ID field, which is a number field, and I'm going to set this one to auto enter a serial number. Then I'm going to set a category field itself, which is going to be a text field, and I will have the abbreviation field, which is going to be a text field as well. Okay, so if I do that, I can go to my category and I can create a few categories like animal, which is an A. I can have a bird, which is the B, and then let's say that I could have a monster, which is an M. Okay, cool. I can go back to my products. Now, what I need to do is I need to be able to kind of select one of my categories from my category table without the ability to make mistakes. So I'm going to go into Edit Layout to turn this one into a drop-down list. And let's make a new drop-down list. Let's say categories. And let's use the values from our field, from the category table and the category field. And let's include all the values. And if I do that by hitting OK, OK, OK 3 times, then if I go in here, I can select all of my categories, and whichever one I select, it will always be spelled correctly, and it will be that specific category, and all the categories will be entered correctly. So that's good data entry. So now as soon as I select one of my categories, I can go and get my abbreviation from my related record now, or my related table. Now these guys aren't related yet. We can see that in the relationships. I've got my product and I've got my category. I can give them colors if I want, so I can see which is which, and so I can relate them. The value in the category here is going to be the same as the value in the category there, so let's just simply draw a line between them. And now what I can do in my edit layout is I can add another field right here, and from my related table of category I can go and get my abbreviation. So whichever one I select now, a swan is an animal but mostly a bird, the correct abbreviation shows up. So that's my first part. I can now get the abbreviation, and I can kind of determine manually what my abbreviation for this category needs to be, and that's the first part of my code that I need to get. So that part we've already covered. And this is very flexible because I can add as many categories as I want, and then I could create the abbreviations exactly the way I want them. Okay, now what we need to do is count the amount of items per category. Now, if we go, I'll show you a little trick, file manage database. What we can do in our product is we can do a summary field, and I'm calling those S, and I'm going to do a count, and I'm going to do ID. What that means is I'm going to create a summary field, and the summary field is going to count the ID. The ID, because that's a field that will always have a value in it. So let's hit OK. And if we add this to our layout, this count, I'll just add it right here somewhere from product, my SCount ID. If I add this field to my layout, like so, there you go. Then what it's going to do is it's going to show me the amount of records. So if I create a new one and I say, for instance, there is an elephant, which is a animal. Oops. Then it's going to show me the amount of records that I had. Now the problem is I've got one bird and one animal, so this count does give me a count of the amount of records that there are, but it doesn't kind of restrict that count per category. So in order to do that, let's go to File, Manage Database, and let's go here. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new table occurrence by hitting those two green plus signs. And this seems like now I've created a new table. But if we go to tables, we can see that I haven't. I still only have my product and my categories, but for my product, I've now got two table occurrences. I've got product and product 2. Those are two occurrences in the graph, and whichever data is in the product table, that will also be in both those occurrences. So it's not like they contain different information. All the products are in here and in this one as well. If I hover over this little arrow, it will say that my source table is still product. So it's going to give me all the data from product. The only reason that I'm making a new table occurrence is so that I can relate it in a different way to this one. And let's give this one a name so that we know which one this one is for. Let's do count a number, because that's what I'm going to use it for, and then this name kind of clearly shows me what this is all about. Let's connect the category to the category, because basically when I'm on this product layout looking at a product from a certain category, then over here in this one I want to see only the products that are in that same category. So that's why the relation is between the category fields. Okay, now I can kind of cheat and see what's going on by adding, using the portal tool, and by basically adding a portal here, and by showing my product count number related records on this layout, so I can clearly see what's going on. I'm going to add all of those fields here. I'm going to select them all because right now they don't have any borders, which I don't like, and I'm going to set them to default so that they have some field borders, and then I can see where they start and when they end. I'm going to add a couple of labels real quick to see what I'm looking at, because it's annoying not to have those. This is a code. And then the last one here is my count. Okay, so I've got an animal, and this is basically showing me the same animal. If I add another one like a lion, I don't think I have that one yet, and that's an animal, then all of a sudden two animals will show up in here. And it's giving me the count per animal, because here is the count in total, and if I look at the top, then I can see that I do have a total of 3 records, but for my animals I've only got 2. So this relationship restricts the amount of related records that I'm seeing here to only the records with the same category, and this summary count then gives me a correct count for the total amount of animals. Now this count in itself is not that interesting to me because it just gives me the total. I would like to be a little bit more specific, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an actual number field. File, manage database. Let's do a number. Let's do code number, and let's make that a number field. Okay, let's save this, and then let's add this number field here. code number. Cool. So that I've got some more stuff to work with. And what I could do now is I could say, let's see, I've got two animals. My elephant is number 1, and actually maybe I can just add these fields here as well, so I can see a little bit better what I'm doing. Okay, let's alt drag this over here, and let's add my code number. Oops, that was kind of funny. Oh, now it went away. Code number. Great, so I could say that my elephant is number 1, and then if my elephant is going to be number 1, then my lion should be number 2. Okay, now my code needs to kind of add this element and this element together, which is going to be very simple. And then this number, instead of me typing it in, needs to be generated automatically. Okay, so one thing that I need to do in order to generate my number automatically is I need to know which the highest number is in here, and then I just need to add 1. So my highest number here is now 1, so that this one is going to be 1 plus 1 equals 2. But I need to do this automatically. Okay. If I want to do this automatically, then I have to know what the highest number in this here is. So I need to create another summary field. Let's go here and let's do summary max number. Let's make this a summary field. Let's create it. And let's say I would like to know the maximum of my code number. Okay, if I do that and I add this field as well, then there we go. As long as my code is 1, then this one will say that my maximum code number is 1. If I add 2 in here, this updates and it says that my maximum code number or my highest number is 2. So that is really cool. If I want to add new animals, then it just needs to look at this field and just needs to add 1 to that number. So let's empty these out again, and let's see if this all works. Okay, now the moment that I need to create this number and this code is the moment when I select a category, because as soon as I select a category, that's when I'll know how many there are in that category, what the highest number is, and that's when I can create this code. So the action of selecting something from this drop down, that is the moment when my code can be generated. My code will be generated by a script, and that script will be triggered when setting a value in this field. So those are two important things. So I'm going to go to my script workspace and create a new script. So that's what I'm going to start with. What I'm going to do is every time I am going to do or depend on a calculation like this summary over a relationship, I'm going to start with a commit record request with the dialog off, and I'm also going to do a refresh window, and I'm going to flush the cached join results. Flushing the cached join results basically means that there is a relationship between this table and this related table, and these are looking for the maximum number is kind of like a calculation that's happening over that relationship. FileMaker sometimes kind of remembers related values or calculations so that it can work a little bit faster, but in some cases it's very important that these, like for instance now, it's very important that we get the correct calculation result here, and we can just force FileMaker to refresh that calculation and recalculate it by refreshing the window and flushing the cached join result. So that's a very important step. So then what we're going to do is we're going to do a set field, and we're going to set the code number field in the product. And we're going to set it by the maximum from the related table, the maximum number plus 1. Okay, and as soon as we've got that, we can then set the code, because we now have the abbreviation plus the new number. So let's copy and paste this one, and let's say that my code needs to be set. And what do I need to get in my code? From my category, I need my abbreviation, and from my related table, oh no, not even from there, from my product table, my code number needs to be added here as well. Okay, let's hit OK, and let's copy and paste this commit record step, because let's commit the code as soon as we've entered it, and let's hit save. Actually, I need to name this one, so I'm going to name this one create code. Okay, let's save this, let's close this. And if you remember, I was going to do this on the action of changing the value in the category. So I'm going to go to the category, and I'm going to set a script trigger. Setting a script trigger is basically triggering a script on a certain event, and there are a couple of events for a field. You can enter a field, you can do a keystroke in a field, you can modify a field, you can validate, or FileMaker validates a field, then it saves, and then it exits the field. Those are all the actions that we've got. And in this case, because I'm using a drop down, I could use the onObject modify to create my code. Now, if you're going to be typing in this field, then you can't use onObject modify, then you have to use onObject save or onObject exit, because onObject modify will trigger this script every time you modify the field. And for instance, typing a value, every time you type a character, you're basically modifying that field, and that will trigger that script. So for typing, this is not good. For a drop down, you can use this onObject modify. Okay, so now you can see a little red star. That means there's a script trigger attached to this script. I guess now we can just exit the layout and try out this script to see what happens. If you've got FileMaker Pro Advanced, then you can use your script debugger and your data viewer to kind of see what's going on. If you don't have FileMaker Advanced, you're just going to have to hope that your script works without being able to check it. So what do I have here? I've got my elephant, which is number 1. Code number 1. Then let's go to our lion, which is then supposed to get code number 2. So let's select this category to perform this script, and then we can see that our script debugger has kind of stopped my script, and now I can step through it to see what's going on. So this is going to refresh the window. That's good. Now I'm going to set a field. I'm going to set the code number, which is this one, with the value of the maximum number, which is 1 plus 1. Let's do that and see what happens. And it actually sets the code to number 2. That's good. And then it sets the code here to A2, which was this step, and then we're done. So this works kind of well. It's creating a code for my animal, and if I create, for instance, a new animal, I've got an elephant and a lion. Let's say that I would like to add a giraffe, which is also an animal. And then when I do so, it gives it a new code. So my code is not yet looking exactly the way I want it to. So let's go back to my script. Let's go to this one and this part of the code. Now, I would like to have, for my code, I would like to have some leading zeros. So my code now is number 3, and I would like to have some leading zeros. Now, there is no function in FileMaker that allows me to add, like for instance, 3 leading zeros. And that also wouldn't really work very well, because now I've got the number 3, but what if I have the number 12? If I add 3 leading zeros to that, you can see that that's 1 0 too many. If I would have a number 101 and I add 3 leading zeros, then of course you've got even more characters going on, and that's not good. So when dealing with leading zeros, what you do is you have to think in the other direction. If you have a number like 3, that's your number, and you want to have 3 leading zeros, then what you need to have is 3 zeros plus your number. Now in these cases this is going to go wrong, but that's why you need to look at this the other way. Instead of adding leading zeros, what you can do is you can take the number from this side and go right, and say for instance I want to have 1 2 3 4 characters from the right, and then you will end up with a number like this. In this case 1 2 3 4 characters from the right will give you this, and in this case 4 characters from the right will give you that number. So what you need to do in FileMaker is you need to use the right function, and right returns the specified number of characters in a text counting from the right. That's exactly what you're gonna need. And the text you're gonna count is gonna be 3 zeros and your product code number. So let's cut this and paste this. So I'm gonna make 3 zeros, then I'm gonna add my code number, and I'm gonna take 4 characters from the right. So as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4 characters from the right. That is what I'll end up with. So this kind of roundabout way of doing things will always get you the correct amount of characters that you want with as many leading zeros as you need. So let's do it like so. I've got my category abbreviation and I've got my right, 3 zeros and my number, and then 4 characters from the right. Let's hit OK. Let's save this and let's see what happens if I select my animal again. It updates, it gives me a 000 and a 4. Now that looks good, my code is looking good. Only one problem though, this has now gotten number 4, but there are only 3 numbers in total. If I select animal again, then it goes up to 5. And that's kind of logical because my number is always going to, this one is looking at the maximum number that I have, which is now 5. That's the highest number. And when I run my script, it's going to add 1 to that number. So one way to solve that is to kind of add a new script up top. Now I can't add a script on the top line, so I'll add a script on the second line and move it up. I'm going to do set fields. I'm going to specify my product code number, and I'm going to specify that I would like this to be like so. So if I move this up to the top, what I'm going to do is when I start, I'm going to empty my code number. I'm going to commit and refresh this, and then I'm going to kind of look again what the maximum number is, not counting the number that I have on this record right now. That has been removed here. Oops, here in this step. And then basically, hopefully, let's see if this problem still persists. So I've got the number 5 now, but actually what I want to get at is the number 3. Let's run this script again. And boom. So now my code number was removed. When this code number gets removed, the highest number is 2. And then 2 plus 1 is 3. Now, this is kind of cool and this is going to work. The only moment that it's not going to work, for instance, if I take a step back to my lion is in the middle. My lion has number 2, but of course the highest number in the series is number 3. Even if my number 2 gets cleared out, the highest number is still going to be number 3. So if I would update this one, it's going to go all the way to 4. So let's do that. And as you can see, it's A004. Now, that is logical. And if you want to avoid this from happening, you should probably just not reassign items to a category after they've already been assigned to a category and they've been given a number. It's basically like the same system that you would use for invoice numbers. Once you've assigned a number to your invoice, you're not going to change it. So once you've assigned a code to a certain item, you're just not going to mess around with that anymore. Now, of course, in this system, we do have the ability to manually change and update this, and we can fix any problem that might happen. But of course, if we add new items, let's say like a tiger, which is an animal, it is gonna work pretty well. You just should be careful to mess around with items that are that have a number that is lower than the maximum number, because then it could potentially go a little bit wrong. Okay, I think this is a pretty cool system with a couple of cool tricks that hopefully taught you guys a little something. And if you want to do this kind of numbering, then you now know how to do it. All right, see you guys soon. Bye. If you guys want to learn a ton more about Filemaker, you can head over to my Udemy page where I've got a bunch of entire Filemaker courses online. You can follow them, and basically we make entire Filemaker systems from scratch, and I'll take you on the entire process step by step. There is even one that is completely free, so you can just follow that free of charge, and that is a beginner tutorial where we make an entire contacts database. That's a really fun one that you can follow that can teach you the basics of FileMaker. So head over there by following the links in the description, and I'll see you guys there.